I always say that I believe that you can twerk and work at the same time.
Welcome to episode 4 of Ask Miko, Sex, Sports, and Everything in Between. I am Miko Grimes, your host, and I have an amazing guest today. Tamika Mallory is joining us today. Thank you so much.
What's going on, sis?
You're my first female.
Oh, really?
Yes.
How long have you been doing the show?
This is episode 4, so we're
okay,
brand
cool.
new,
I
brand
get
new.
it,
But, I did episode 1 by myself, and all the men were like, no, we need a man, because there's sports talk, there's sex talk, there's stuff in between.
Yeah.
So they didn't like my opinions on certain things. So I had a male in episode 2, a male in episode 3.
Yeah.
And now female.
It's all good. They can learn.
They can
You
learn.
don't have to
They
like
can
it,
learn.
but you can learn.
I'm so excited to have you on here. I wasn't sure you would come on because I was like, this is a fun show. We talk about serious stuff, but it's a little fun. And I don't see fun on social media. You don't put out fun.
I do.
Do you?
Yes, and I get beat up for it. But I don't care. I still do it. But people
we got
are
a question
like,
about that too, man. So people beat you up for being fun?
Well, yeah, they want, I get it. People are so traumatized. There's so much happening that folks are like, if you off, then maybe issues are being left on the table.
God.
But then there's other folks that are just miserable and they want me to be miserable with them. And that's just not going to happen. So,
yes. So I know who you are, but I wanted you to introduce my listeners to you. I was going to read a whole thing about you that I Googled. That was amazing. But I think it'd be better coming from you.
You know what? As I was coming, I was thinking, I wonder if you know that I grew up in the housing projects in Harlem. So yeah, I grew up in the projects, as they say, old NYCHA, New York City Housing Authority, in New York. And I was raised by 2 parents who, they were activists. Well, my dad was certainly an activist. It's in his blood. My father, my grandfather helped to start the first union at his steel company in Alabama, where he was a worker. And my dad, has always had the spirit of activism in him, growing up on a very close to a cotton field and all of that. And then my mom, just coming through life experiences, she wanted to be active and wanted to make sure her kids were engaged in community development and that we were just doing positive things. And so that's sort of, even though we were in the projects, they found this like adjacent life to kind of show us something different. And so that's how I grew up. But, of course, I still was like, well, I kind of like this other thing. I understood what they were trying to teach me somewhat because it was so much it was just everything we did. We listened to the tapes, we watched the movies, we heard the Martin Luther King, the Malcolm X's and the whole thing. But I was much more interested in the stuff going on that they were kind of trying to shield me from, which was what was happening in the project.
Right.
Hanging out and the boys and the bamboo earrings and the Pele jacket with the colorful sneakers and the whole thing.
New York.
The 5411 sneakers, the whole
Reeboks.
thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I really, really wanted to be into. And that leads you a certain way if you're not, if you're not careful. And I wasn't. I was in the street. I did a lot of things, broke my parents' heart. I was a runaway.
I was a runaway.
Yeah, were you?
Yes.
Yeah. That's a real painful thing for your family,
Yeah.
and I know I put my parents through a lot. I gave my mother a level of anxiety that she still, and I'm sure my father too, but men don't talk as much as women about, their feelings and emotions. But I'm sure the anxiety of not knowing where I was, what I was doing, it really put them in a not so good space. So, I went through all of that and then I got pregnant. Well, they moved me. They wanted to leave the project. So they moved me to a place called Co-op City, which is a beautiful place, but it's still the projects.
Okay.
Even though it's way more expensive, nicer, cleaner, but the politics are still projects because it's buildings and you got turf wars between sections and, still got drugs. You have all of that stuff. So they were like, oh, Lord, we came here and she found this. And it's all in you.
Yeah.
It's what you're looking for.
Yeah, you're going to find what you're looking for no matter where you are.
No matter where you are.
You can put a crackhead in Beverly Hills. They're going to find that crack.
They're going to find it. It's there for you if you want it. And so I found it. I also found my son's father. Okay. And by the time I was 17, I was pregnant. I had my son, I don't know, the time goes, the months, they say it's 9 months, but I don't know.
It's 10 months.
It's 10 months. So anyway, I was about to turn 19 when my son was born. And then my son's father was murdered 2 years later. And when he was killed, That's like when, it woke up. Like, oh, my parents, all that stuff, those rallies and all of that. It made a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
Sitting like, what am I supposed to do with this baby? And what the hell happened to his father? And they had, he had a lot of drug addiction around him. And he just went the wrong way and ended up getting killed.
So you had to experience it. You're not like other people where you can listen to somebody else telling you not to do something. You had to actually experience some things so you could feel it and be like, okay, this is why I need to get my life together. This is why I need to move in these directions and things like that. Well, at least you learned from yourself.
Absolutely. I learned from experience. And I think that does make you different when you're an organizer, having lived experience versus being someone who read a book and you can have passion. I'm not telling people that if you've never been through it that you can't help, but I do think that you've got to find ways to partner with and bring like in the fold people who have lived experience because they're the best ones to like sort of help find solutions and tell you what is really needed. Sometimes what we think folks need.
You've never done it. You don't even know.
You don't have
You're so out of the loop. Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to tap into some questions. So this show is called Ask Miko. So what generally happens is social media and my friends and family send me questions. They can ask me any questions they want, and I promise to answer them. Now, I do only do a 45-hour show, but we're going to be a little shorter today. But I wanted to ask you some questions. Okay. We're going to have fun. It's going to be serious, but a little fun too. Are you ready?
All right.
And we're going to go quickly, right?
Lord Jesus.
Okay, so this one I really wanted to ask you. I've been wanting to ask you this myself forever, but thank God somebody else asked. How do you handle people coming at you for not covering a crime or a story that they want covered? Like you can't be everywhere. You can't cover every single thing.
Yeah.
So how do you handle when somebody's in your social media like, yo, my cousin got murdered. Yo, this happened, and it's not on your radar.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
I have many different emotions. I'm like every other human person. People believe somehow that activists and organizers and leaders, which I'm really careful when you use that word because it's loaded. But they think we're like robots and we are totally not. So first of all, I don't always have capacity, right? So I can't and I can look at an issue and see that I don't have the tools to do this thing. Maybe I just don't even have the mental capacity to handle it. It might be too much for me. Never know. You could be telling me that a young lady was drowned and I might not have ever told you the story about me feeling like I was drowning or someone close to me. And it might just be something that I've made a decision I can't do it, right? And so I have many different responses. Sometimes I explain, hey, it was just not something we could do. Sometimes I just ignore it. And sometimes I snap back and be like, why don't you do it? Why don't you organize yourself? It's just simple, just like we do. We just find a way and get involved and connect with the right people. So like any other human, it's not always comfortable, but I think, I just respond however the hell I feel when I woke up that morning and don't have it be a part of my 30-day, what do you call it, 7 days of 30? Because then I'm really like,
They gonna get the claws. So you are a co-founder and you are the youngest director?
No, so I was the youngest ever director of the National Action Network, which is Reverend Al Sharpton's organization. That's where I grew up. That's where I got much of my training and my, as they say, get your feet wet in the movement. But now I'm co-founder of Until Freedom, along with your friend, my son, the General, Linda Sarsour, and attorney Angelo Pinto.
Yes. So talk a little bit about Until Freedom.
Until Freedom is a social justice organization. So we look at issues of racial inequity and the areas that we have the most capacity, places where we have the most passion, that's where we work. So gun violence, even though some people are like, well, why is that a racial issue? Well, because, guns are in our community in ways that they're not in others. And so is poverty. So we think whenever you have guns and poverty in the same place, you have crime and people being chaos and people being harmed. So we look at that. Police brutality is obviously an issue. And I think as of late, we have really started focusing on Black women because Black women are dealing with lots of different racial injustices and just oppression and everything else. And our society is just often very dismissive of Black women. And so between Breonna Taylor, Shanquella Robinson, and cases like that, we found ourselves being very, very focused on those cases when we realized it was a void. Even if you think about like Sandra Bland, I mean, that was a situation that the world really should have turned upside down about this woman getting pulled over for a taillight.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, she's hanging in a cell.
Yeah.
That was terrible. And it really didn't get the type of attention that it needed, although it's in our hearts. But
Mhm.
we vowed that we would not allow these types of situations to just happen, and it kind of goes away so quick. So for the last several years, as you know, we've been fighting for Breonna Taylor, and we haven't
Mhm.
stopped. And that's the way we intend to operate as it relates to Black women. Doesn't mean we don't fight for Black men also. So let's be clear, because
Right.
they're gonna be like, oh, you
So
see,
it's
it's a
only
women's
about the
organization.
women. Yeah.
No, we do that. We do that, but we are just trying to have a special lens and focus on
Mhm.
Black women's issues.
So, one of the biggest issues with our community is when we do get together, there's all these issues with money. I'm sure you've heard about the
Mm.
Black Lives Matter
Very
situation.
much
There's
so.
been so many things happening, and for lack of time, I won't dive deep into
Of
them.
course.
But there's been lawsuits against them by their own activists and all these people. Have you guys had any lawsuits against you? And can you talk about where the money that people donate goes for your organization?
So two things. I wouldn't say I defend Black Lives Matter, but I'm
Mhm.
also I've been through enough in this movement for almost 30 years of my life that I can discern information very well. So when I read articles and I listen to people talk about them as an organization, the different leaders, all of them, they don't just
Mhm.
accuse Black Lives Matter. This has been going on
Yes.
since Dr. King and before, that there's always this accusation of somebody stealing the money, right?
Mhm.
And I always looked for the source. Where did it come from? Who was the original person to say it? And I also realized when $90 million is on the table, it's like $9,000 in an insurance policy after your grandmother passes away. Families
People
all
fighting for
together,
it.
all the way up until a funeral. It's beautiful. And then as soon as it's over, it's like, who are these people? Like, what happened? A whole family
Yeah.
blew up over this $9,000. So it doesn't surprise me that internally there was conflict over the money. I don't get in it. I'm not in Black Lives Matter. So that's that. But on the political side, who does it benefit to consistently accuse Black leaders of doing fraud or stealing, or what they call it, in improper use of funds? Who does
Mhm.
it benefit? Probably the
People that
people
are
who are
spreading the
against what
stories.
it is that we're fighting for. So in our situation, what we try to do, we read, we know our history. We understand the things that can get you in the most trouble. So one of the things we do is have the most painful dealings with the accountants every day. It's horrible. Like
Mhm.
when they say they want to speak at a certain time, we're already like, oh my God, because we know we probably gave Pookie $50. That where's the receipt? And
Mhm.
so it's all of that, and it's difficult. But what we try to do is, because we understand our history, we try to be transparent, and we try to make sure, like, we raise while others raise 90 plus million, and other organizations, by the way, they like to focus on Black Lives Matter, but many other organizations raised hundreds of millions of dollars
Mhm.
during the summer of 2020, and that whole period of everybody's on, we got to make a change, got to do that. We raised 3.2 million.
Mm.
And we gave away over $1 million. So we have organizations that will tell you, they, even if they don't like, because we have people who didn't even like us, and we still gave them money because of what they do, like
Mhm.
in Louisville, Kentucky. We fed 4,000 people. We held conferences, and we do a lot of lives to show people like how we're living, where, what we're dealing with,
Mhm.
security, and the cost. Sometimes we put shit on the shit. Like, it
Yeah.
costs this to have
Because I
24-hour
did see that
security.
Black Lives Matter paid the security company of her brother, the co-founder's brother, like almost
Okay.
$900,000.
I'm glad you brought that up. So
Yeah.
I know we had a little bit of time, but I think that's important to delve into.
Yeah.
So for one, security is probably the most expensive bill. Like, there's a couple, travel is high because plane tickets is like, what are they
Yeah.
talking about? But security is very expensive. And it's one of those things, like how, like, my sister Shandy, she always says, it's like paying car insurance. You hope you never have to use it, but you're paying for it because it's necessary in
Yeah.
case you need it, and to deter people from
From
right.
messing with you, for
Right.
coming at
Now,
you.
in that situation, when you're talking about, so it is expensive, but when you talk about that amount of money going to someone's brother, well, first of all, I would prefer to have my brother's company be securing me when folks are calling me a terrorist and I have death threats against me, then I'm not going to put my life in his hand. I don't know him.
Yeah.
I know him. And if people have been with me since the beginning, it's very similar to all of a sudden $100 million comes in and I look at my son and say, well, I'm sorry, we can't work together anymore because I'm going to find somebody else to fill this role that you've been doing for free.
Yeah.
You know, so I get it. It needs to be clarified and people need to understand. But people also need to just have just use a little bit of discernment and common sense. And I think a part of it is that we are, because of media and social media, I'm all for, we need to defund this, shut it down. I'm so tired of it.
Yeah.
But it does fuel how you see things sometimes. And we're just accusatory beings.
We are. We don't trust each other.
Right.
You know?
We don't trust anybody. And we've been treated away and dealt with things that makes us untrustworthy.
Yeah. We got to have a little fun because we're running out of time. Okay? So fun. These are questions that people send at me, but you're going to have to answer them too. I'm going to tailor them so that you can answer. So let's switch the whole vibe right now. Okay? I'm going to read this.
All right.
You're a mother. Why are you in a thong bikini with your titties barely covered on the internet? Have some respect. Your son will see this one day. So this is at me, right? So obviously I like to wear bikinis. I like to be online. For me personally, it's just a body, right? Men are so caught up. Like men are so horny that porn is free now. Okay, it's free. Do you remember you used to pay for porn?
Yeah.
Now you can just
because
there's so many porn sites. They don't even charge you no more. It's free, and men are always wanting to see women naked. And as soon as you do, they want to call you a hoe.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm half naked on the internet because I think I look good. Because it's 48.
You look
48
amazing.
is eating right
You
now.
look amazing.
So I'm doing me. I'm having fun. I'm enjoying my life. I'm using the apps the way I want to use it. How does Tamika have fun?
How do I have fun? Oh, I thought you was going to ask me about thong bikinis. Because
Have I seen you in one? Have you been in one?
I don't necessarily post my backside.
Yeah, I don't do that. It gets caught sometimes.
Sometimes it does. But I post all the rest of it. And I don't, I used to. I've had hard hits from people who love me, people who I'm family with, calling me, mainly men. You should really, you're going to lose respect or whatever. And I'm like, well, then, hey, I'm cool with it. Because guess what? There's a lot of other people who come to me and they're like, oh, I didn't even know we was like that.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me more about the other stuff you do.
That might bring them in.
And some of them have stayed. They've been with me, so I kind of look at it that way. But your question was,
how do I have fun? How do you have fun?
Oh, I have big fun.
You just don't post it?
I don't know if I post it. One, because of the other people. If I'm in a strip club, I'm not finna be.
People don't want to know who's.
People don't want you to know who's there.
So you go to strip clubs.
Definitely go to strip clubs. I absolutely go to strip clubs.
Okay.
Why not? And I go to hole in the walls in every city.
I like those.
So if I land in Alabama in a city or in Louisiana somewhere, the first thing we tell the driver and the community, wherever it's or if we're going there because we're speaking for this or that, we're like, where's the hole in the wall? Where do people eat? Where do the people go? That's where we want to go.
The locals go.
Where do the locals go?
Yeah.
And I do have a good time. I always say that I believe that you can twerk and work at the same time. That's my thing. Twerk and work. And I do both. And I'm okay with that. So if you don't like it, I get it. I might not be a cup of tea. And by the way, Miko, there are a number of other leaders, activists, organizers, and people you can fall in line. That was my whole pushback with the whole thing around Essence, the Essence Festival. They were like, well, Meg Thee Stallion and Janelle Monáe, they was twerking this and that. I'm like, yeah, but the first night, Lauryn Hill was fully dressed with 5 different things on.
Yeah.
You had,
Why can't we have everything?
Each night is someone for you to enjoy for your cup of tea. And I might not be it. And that's okay too.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. One of the other questions I wanted us to really talk about was, the question came in a little funny.
When you laugh, I don't know what that
are y'all going to talk about the lady that scammed everybody to thinking she got hit with a brick? Did you hear about that?
I did. I heard it was happening. And I know my son was engaged in it. And we talked about it a little bit when we taped our podcast earlier today. I mean, yeah, I heard about it, but I'm not like all connected, super emotionally to the fact that you're not gonna be right about every case. Like nothing is solid proof, right?
Yeah.
Even somebody in your personal life that you love, you could be defending them and be like,
then you find out,
wait a minute,
shit is
you know. So
tricky.
I get it. She lied. People lie. Women lie. It's wrong when
Men
we do
lie.
it. Men lie.
Numbers lie. Jay-Z did not tell y'all the truth. Numbers lie too. Go ahead.
No, think people lie, but I think the fundamental value, this is the way I see it, is stand up. Especially if it's not like you know they're lying and you're doing it for clout. Get that. But stand up first and then figure out the rest of it later. That's my thing. My thing is I want to be an advocate that, you know, hopefully I can get it right. But imagine if we waited to say,
prove if somebody was right
before you stand up. I mean, how can you? There's no bulletproof strategy to this. It just is what it is. Sometimes you're wrong, and sometimes you just got to be like, "Oh, my bad," or you could just be like, "Okay, let me give you my position on the issue. It still stands, and I'm moving on."
Another question is, if Joe Biden and Donald Trump are the two majority candidates, who are you voting for?
I'm definitely voting for Joe Biden.
And why?
If they're the two candidates. Why? Because I'm just not voting for Donald Trump. Not never, ever.
Do you don't think they're equally as bad?
No.
No?
Not at all. Not at all. Because when I think about, even though I am not a Joe Biden fan, I never wanted Joe Biden. I wasn't a Democratic primary supporter of Joe Biden's, right? So people have to remember that. That if I was, what am I saying? Right. So at the time, if I was a supporter of his all the way through, I could completely respect everybody saying like she was always with them. She was all in, but I wasn't. I liked Elizabeth Warren, and then I could have gone with Bernie Sanders. I like Bernie but I liked Elizabeth Warren more. And there was other people. There was Cory Booker. There was this one. There was 900 million thousand people up there on the debate stage, and I could have gone with anybody. Joe Biden became the candidate for a lot of different reasons. And one of them is that we got to take primaries seriously. So people have to vote. Because if you vote in the primaries and whoever wins, no matter whether folks like them or not, they have to adhere to the voices of the people. So we have to be more politically engaged from the beginning. But I understand, I don't care what Donald Trump says or what the people on the internet that's trying to trick you or make you think. I am very clear of what has happened in this country after after Donald Trump became president. I know that the spirit of MAGA is very harmful. It is oppressive, and it came out of his own mouth when he talked about Colin Kaepernick, or when he told police, don't be nice to him, rough him up, throw him in the car, bang their head. We can sit here and look at, not saying all of them have passed, not saying even if you look at the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, I know that much more needs to be in that bill, but I promise you one thing, Joe Biden and his administration put it forward, and guess who fought to stop it? People who support Donald Trump. So I want my opponent that I'm fighting to be somebody that I can actually match up to in the boxing ring. I'm not trying to go to the boxing ring to fight somebody that is 3 times my size, 2 times my size, and they got, blood coming out of their face, and they're like animal. They're not even in a real like boxing match. They're in a kill, die, murder, kill situation. I don't want to go box them. I want to go box somebody that's why they weigh you. They weigh you to make sure we on equal playing field. So when we get in the ring, may the best man or woman win, but at least I have a shot And with Donald Trump, I don't think that we have a shot in getting anything done, anything passed. And with Joe Biden, I feel like I can fight him at least enough that I might be able to make some wins. And I know some people, they're like, F that. And that's fine if that's your strategy, but it's not mine. And I don't think we can be angry at one another because we don't both adhere to the same strategies. We have to have firefighters who come out and put either, but I know Cornell loves Black people. I have seen him. I know he's a fighter. He is a freedom fighter. I know that. So the question is, have you donated any money to him? Are you helping to build his strategy, or are you just spending your time talking about the difference between Trump and Biden and trying to call me a Democratic paid whatever they call me?
So let me say this. We only have a couple more minutes and we got to get out of here. I do not believe in voting. I don't. I'm just keeping it real. I haven't seen any movement that makes me feel like it's working. I think in the local government, there's some things that I've seen working. So what I do every year, my son probably told you, I've been a Georgia registered voter for the past, since 2006. I'm just now last year, my first time voting in Florida. But I would literally ask him and other people to tell me. I flew to Georgia every single time it was time to vote. And I tell them, tell me who to vote for. And I literally go down the ballot and write whatever people that I respect.
I haven't had to do that.
The one thing I do not do, I don't let anyone choose my presidential vote. And I've voted independent every time. And people say, well, you're just giving a vote to the ops. I don't care. It's my choice, right? So that's what I do. I go down and I vote for whoever all the Black people that I support feel they want to win. And then I choose my president as someone independent. I chose Jade Simmons last time.
Fine.
I love her. Yes. So what do you have to say to people like me that don't believe voting is working and don't even want to vote?
Right. Well, I would say this. The other side, the people who you probably don't agree with on issues, they vote. So you got to ask yourself, what is the difference? What do they know about voting that we may not know? Because nobody works hard to stop you from something that they don't believe is impacting them. Also, everything about us is governed by our politics, everything. And I'm sure as a Florida resident, when you look at Governor Ron DeSantis banning education, changing the Constitution, firing or suspending Black women who are leaders, who are in elected office, who are trying to protect the rights of citizens from police and other things. And you know that this man who is governor, if he wasn't in office, would you make a different decision to be like, you know what, we might need to vote him out because he's racist and he's dangerous, right? You want your children to go to school along with their friends and learn American history that is true and accurate, and not some story that says we gained from being enslaved.
But they didn't gain.
Right? So so this is the type of, and by the way, you said this show is sports, sex, everything in between, right? All of those things are governed by politics. So even if we don't think it's working, which I don't always agree, I don't think it's working all the time either. What I can tell you though is that somebody is making policies that control our vaginas. They control the birth control we can use. They control if we can get an abortion or not. Everything that we do is being controlled by politics. So when you don't vote and you don't participate, what you're saying is that you have no stake in the game. So then how do you complain when you like, shit, I need to get birth control pills, or I need my daughter who's now 16 or 17 to start taking birth control and she can't? What do you do?
You're right. I just call this country ghetto.
It is.
That's all I do is call it ghetto. But what's not ghetto is this conversation. I had a really good time with you. You're gonna have to come back on again. We need a longer conversation. But
let's talk about everything but politics the next time.
Yes. See? That's
what
fun.
I want to do.
That's a good. That's a good fun one. Okay.
Family, children.
Yes.
No one. When you said about being fun and people not, a lot of people don't invite me to shows like yours because they think that they have to talk about politics or they got to know all the laws and the rules, and it actually gets to be pretty boring. Like I talk about that every day.
A job. Yeah, you want to do some fun. Well, you know what? You got to come to Florida.
I would do.
Come to my studio.
I don't know about because I've been boycotting Florida, but for your show, I might make.
Yeah. Come hang out. Just hide out in my little cocoon. But thank you again. Tell everybody about your social media where they can find you and anything else you want them to know.
Oh, folks can go to @Tamika D Mallory on everything. Tamika D Mallory everywhere. And if you want to support my work, please go to untilfreedom.com and just know that Tamika D Mallory's page, whether I post things about the work or not, it's my personal page.
Yes.
So we do twerking, we do politics, we might talk about sex, we talk about vaginal health, we talk about all kinds of things, relationships, love. It all is on my personal page.
Okay.
But Until Freedom has all the work.
Got it. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me once again. Remember, subscribe, like, comment, pass all this information on to your friends so we can get this show popping. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.